Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to yet another episode of the MT Agroecologists. My name is Thomas Malunda. It's been a while ever since I released an episode. I've been quite busy. But yeah, I'm hoping that, moving forward, I'll be able to keep up with the consistency of the 2 weeks uh, episode. Like every after 2 weeks, give you something to watch and learn from. Before I jump into today's episode, I would like to first do a recap of what we spoke about the last time when I released an episode. I was with Council Rogers Care, who spoke through the legal considerations that agroecologists and agriculturalists in general need to think about as they are embarking on this venture of farming. He spoke about how you can legalize your interest in land, then spoke about the intellectual property rights that you need to consider as an agroecologist, things that you can earn money from. Because, like I mentioned in the previous episodes, agroecology is made complete by three things: social justice, environmental preservation, and economic viability. So, through leveraging things like intellectual property rights, you tap into the economic viability. Of course, there are other aspects through which you can make sure that whatever you're venturing into is profitable, but that intellectual property rights aspect is one of those that should be explored, but which many people like you watching me don't probably usually explore. So that's what we spoke about. In case you didn't watch that episode, you can do that. Like, just search for the previous episode on MT Agroecologists. You'll be able to watch it. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't know what you're doing here if you're not subscribing. So please click on that button, subscribe, click on the notification button such that when we release any episode like this one, you are able to be notified, such that you can check it out, learn, practice, and be happy. When you do farming and it comes out well, I think it brings joy. So I want to make sure that when you come on this platform, MT Agroecologists, you learn as much as possible and implement and see great results. So before I jump into the topic today, I know that we are celebrating Easter today, so I want to wish you all watching this episode a very happy Easter. I hope that you can take time to rest. Some of you have been so busy like myself, so this is the time for you to rest. Spend time with family, do some spiritual nourishment, and when time comes for you to resume work, you should be super recharged. So today I'm shooting from the perennial section of the MT Agroeco farm. Things are coming out, man. They're looking so beautiful. So where I am, we have bananas. You can see a banana plant in front of me, and we also have coffee. So when you look on this other side, you can see coffee. So it's an intercrop of bananas and coffee. And for bananas, we have different varieties. We have the dessert types. So for example, this in front of me is called bogoya. For those of you who have been to Uganda, there is that big yellow banana, very sweet. So this is where it comes from. So we have bogoya. We have another one called ndizi. Ndizi is the small dessert banana. Still, if you've been to Uganda, you should have seen these along the way being sold. They're usually small in size, but they're very sweet. Actually, it's from them that pancakes are made. So we also have that variety on the farm. We have another one called chivuvu. That one is usually cooked and served, but it's also very delicious. And then we have the cooking variety bananas. Quite a number of plants there. But all in all, we have banana plants, different varieties, and then we have coffee. So like you can see, they are all coming out. And where I'm standing, there are lines of beans. Okay, so we planted beans in this intercrop. These beans are gonna act as a cover crop, and I'm gonna be talking about them more shortly. but just wanted to talk about where I'm standing. Far behind me, if you can see, that's where the forest is. So, excuse me, the episode that I recorded last with Rogers was standing in the forest, somewhere down there. So what you see here is the upper section of the forest, and like I mentioned on the previous episode, what we have in the forest are different fruit trees, medicinal plants, pesticidal plants, which we all hope to use on this farm. So in some coming episodes, I'll be doing a thorough, tour of the farm. But at least for now, I'm just making sure that as I shoot any episode, I do it in a different, section of the farm for you to get a feeling of what's at MT Agro Eco Farm, such that you can be prompted to come and check it out. Of course, we haven't officially opened it up for the public, but we hope to, open it up before the end of this year to enable people to come, learn. There is nothing as fun as doing a tour as you're learning, okay? So I hope to create that experience for you here at MT Agro Eco Farm, whereby you come, tour, and we are on an island. What better visit can be more than that? Like going to an island, going to a farm, learning about better farming practices, seeing how it's done. Oh man, I'm sure you'll love it. But yeah, we are setting it up, and I'm sure that by the time you'll come, it will be where we expect it to be. So I want to jump into it today. I want to talk about something very important for us agroecologists, and that is soil and water conservation. But I'm going to majorly speak about the water. Of course, usually as we are conserving water, we also indirectly conserve the soil. But I want to speak more about the water conservation. What do we mean when we speak about water conservation? That's what I'm going to first talk about. Then I'll speak about why it is very important. After that, I'll talk about how it can be done. And then finally, I'll talk about how we can prepare for effective water conservation on our farms. Okay? So let's jump into it. What is it? Like when somebody says water conservation, what are they talking about? Well, I don't know what you expected me to say. But it's not rocket science, it's just water, as in the water, and then conserving is preservation. So when we talk about water conservation, we are basically talking about how best we can retain water in the soil. Okay, these plants that you see here, the crops that you see on this farm, cannot grow without water. Water is one of those key resources that any crop will require to grow effectively. So currently in Uganda, we are in the rainy season, okay? And water seems to be adequate at this particular point in time. But then there are times when we are in the dry season. In Uganda, we have 2 rainy seasons, but some countries like Malawi, they have 1 rainy season, and also some other countries. So you want to make sure that when there is abundance of water, there are measures in place to keep it, to conserve it, so that when you go into the dry spell, then your crops do not suffer. Okay, so basically when we say water conservation, what we are talking about are measures, techniques which we can leverage to make sure that the water stays in the soil. I hope that's clear. Like I said, it's not rocket science. Like the way, it states in English that water and conservation, bring those words together, we are basically talking about keeping that water in the soil. As simple as that. So why is it crucial? I've hinted on one of the reasons. Like these crops cannot grow without water in the soil. So because water is key in ensuring that these crops that we plant in the gardens, in the fields, come up well, then we need to come up with measures to make sure that we keep it in the farm. Okay, so how do we do this? There are different techniques that we can leverage to conserve water in the soil. One is soil covering. And where I'm standing are two examples of soil covering. The first one is this here that you see. This. So the practice of getting such material and applying it on the soil like it is here, we call that mulching. Okay, so, and mulching can be in two ways. There is this act of getting such materials, dead plant material, putting it over the soil to help conserve the moisture in the soil. The other way of doing this is leveraging living mulch. Living mulch can be crops, like the cover crops. An example of that, leveraging living plants to do the covering, is this here. So these are beans that you see. They are living, they've been planted, and the essence of putting them here is to enable them cover the soil. Okay, so we are planting them in these different spaces, because as we were planting the bananas, there are spaces. There's a spacing we followed, okay, to plant these bananas, which was 20 by 20 feet, and then 10 by 10 we put there coffee. So in between these rows, so in between one hole of bananas and another one, we have lines of beans. These beans are aimed at enabling us cover the soil, as of course they play another role, which I'm going to talk about. For now, I'm talking about covering of the soil. So there is this method, getting dry matter, applying it on the soil surface to help keep whatever moisture is in the soil there. But also, if at all rain falls and for example, if a raindrop falls here, it percolates, because there are spaces inside here, so it percolates and goes through this material and it goes into the soil. Okay, so it is hard for this moisture or water to be lost to the atmosphere through evaporation when this mulch is there. So that's one way of conserving: mulching, cover cropping. And of course, cover cropping, there are numerous crops that we can use. I've spoken about the beans. You can use lab, you can use mukuna, you can use some trees like gliricidia. All these are crops that you can leverage to cover your soil. The reason that's why we should do that, like I mentioned at the start, is to enable us conserve the moisture in the soil. Okay, so that's soil cover. The other way through which moisture can be conserved in the soil is by creating ridges on the farm. So when you look far beyond, before you get to the forest, you can see a ridge on which grasses are planted. So the reason why we created that ridge is to trap the water that is coming from the garden, such that it stays in the garden. So instead of it going out and going to the forest, we want it to stay here. So when it finds the barrier, it won't continue with its flow, but rather would sink into the soil. So ridges are another way through which water can be brought to stay in the soil. Okay, like in other words, preventing it from moving out of the field. Another way through which you can do it is through having trenches on the farm. We don't have trenches here because our soil is relatively flat, but in particular fields, probably some of your fields which are quite slanting, you may need trenches there. So trenches are another way through which we can ensure that the water that comes into our farm does not leave the farm. Okay, so when the trenches are there, the water will be stored in there, and of course gradually percolate into the deeper soil layers where the plants can access it from. So on the trenches approach, how exactly should it be done? So recently I visited a farm of a friend who wanted to make trenches, and I asked him, okay, so how are you gonna make them? And he was like, well, I'm just gonna get a hoe and dig. And I was like, it's not done like that. And he was wondering, how should it be done? So probably you are also wondering, like, how can trenches be made in the farm? Like I said, we don't have them here on my farm because the land is relatively flat. But I'm going to show you, like I'm going to demonstrate how you can do that. And I'm going to leverage some of these here. Let me get a stick. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna leverage this to explain to you how trenches can be made in a farm. So the first thing is you get 2 sticks, long enough, longer than this, so they could be 1 meter long. So you get 2 sticks, 1 meter long, and then you get another stick which is short, so it could be half a meter, okay, or around 30 centimeters, something around that. So when you get them, so this is 1 stick and this is another, you bring them and join them like this. So you can use any locally available resource to join them. So it could be a string. You can get a string and tie them. You can get a nail and fix it there. Whatever you choose to use, I leave that up to you. The whole point is making sure that these are kept together. So when this is done, the next step is getting a smaller stick, this, and putting it here. So still, you leverage a string, a rope, or anything that you got, locally available resources to tie it. So when you are done, you're gonna have something like this. It will form letter A. And because of this shape that it forms, it is called an A-frame. Okay? So, I repeat, the first step is you get 2 sticks, tie them together, then get a smaller stick, tie it somewhere below, such that it's held tightly on these 2 sticks, and then you form something looking like this, an A-frame. When you're done with that, we then go to the process of calibration. How is that done? You then get a rope, a string, so whatever you choose. Still, I emphasize you should go for locally available resources. Okay, so if you have any string on the farm, if you have a rope, you can get it and tie it. Let me see. So you tie it up here. Oh, my A-frame is struggling. So you see where these long sticks meet or touch. So you get a rope and hang it there such that it's, hanging down. Okay, when that is done, the next step is to get a weight. It could be a stone, it could be a water bottle, it could be anything still. It could be a cloth like soil like this one here. So it could be this, like you get it, tie it onto the string such that it's sort of a weight on that string. So in the end, what you're gonna have will be something like this, like an A-frame made, and then a weight hanging on a string. Okay, so when that is done, the next step is you hold this A-frame with its weight and get a flat surface. So you look on your farm, you find any flat surface where you see that it's almost flat. That's where you take your A-frame, put it on ground. Okay, my sticks are not of the same height, so you put it on the ground and then you swing the weight. When you swing the weight, you wait for the string to stop swinging. So it will stop somewhere, and when it stops swinging, where that string touches this small stick, you make a mark there. Okay, when that is done, in the same position where you are, you just change like this. The side that was on the left goes to the right, and the side that was on the right goes to the left, but same position. and then you swing again. When you swing again, when the string still touches this small stick, you make a mark. Okay, when that is done, you look at the two marks that have been made. In between them, you make a mark there. I hope you are together to this point. So what you're trying to do here is to calibrate, to come up with a label which is going to help you identify the different contours on the farm. Okay, so that process is what we go through to make an A-frame. So you should be wondering now, you said you're going to talk about how to make trenches, just explaining A-frame. What the hell are you talking about? Hey, let's take it slow. Don't worry, we're getting there. So when this is done, the next step is you look around your farm and see the inlets of water. So you see where water enters your farm from. In most cases, these are usually places along near the roadside, because usually water is flowing in the road. So places like that where water can come into your farm, you identify such. And when you go there, what you do is you get this A-frame that you made, you place one leg at the start, you know, where the border of your farm and maybe the road, where, you know, a place where water is coming into your farm from. So you place one leg of the A-frame there, and then the other. So when you place this one here, this other will just automatically be somewhere. Then you get a peg and put it where this first leg is. So I'm gonna use this. So you put it down here like this. When you're done, then you begin moving this other leg while swing. So you swing the string, and what you want to accomplish or achieve is for the string to stop swinging at the label that you created. Remember the label that we created during calibration? So what you want is to make sure that the string stops at that exact point, that middle mark that you created in between the two marks that you came up with while calibrating. So you keep on changing while swinging until you find a place where the string is in the middle point. When it does that, that would mean that this point here and this point here are on the same elevation. Okay, so you get another peg and put it here. When that is done, then you move the A-frame like this, and then do the same process. Swing until your string stops in the middle point, which will indicate that this particular point and this are in the same elevation until you put a peg there and continue with the process. So at the end of the day, you'll find that you have pegs like these ones making it can't be a straight line, so it will be like a zigzag going across the farm. And then of course what you would do is to remove the outliers and then get probably a rope, come up with sort of a line. Okay, so from the original one to the last one that you've made in your farm. And then when that is done, you begin. So if this is where the pegs are, so behind them you begin digging the trench. Okay, and of course you dig basing on the flow of the land. So if you're told the land is slanting like this, you would dig while, you know, bringing soil backwards. Okay, so you make the trench following that particular line that you have created. So basically that's how you use an A-frame to make a trench. I hope that's clear. So the last bit that I want to talk about is how do you prepare for this? Number one, I spoke about mulching. Before you set up your plantation, before you set up your farm, you need to think about where you're going to get the mulch from. If you look far beyond me, behind me, you can see grasses planted. This is something we deliberately did here at MT Agro Eco Farm. all the boundaries have grasses. So we have vetiver grass moving across the border. We have Nandisetaria grass, the one that you see here moving, separating the different blocks of enterprises. We have lemongrass somewhere. So like we have all these grasses for a reason. Of course, the lemongrass is a repellent, so it's playing that part. But then these other grasses, some of them are gonna be used as livestock feeds, but then they're also aimed at helping us with mulching. And the best one for that is the vetiver grass. It's a very good mulch. So, how are you planning for that? Set up this on your farm, like plant grasses on your farm, such that you can pick from the grasses you planted and bring to the farm. That's one thing to think about. Second thing, in terms of preparation, making the trenches. I've mentioned how you can leverage an A-frame to make trenches in your farm. So, making trenches before you put the crops there. So, for example, before you create the holes for the bananas, the coffee, you gotta make the trenches in the field. How would you do that? I've illustrated. Okay. Number three, something that you could do in terms of preparation is the kind of soil on which you want to do the farming. There are particular soils that can't keep moisture that well, soils that are sandy in nature. So you want to make sure that where you want to establish your farm, the soils are not of a sandy texture, because if at all they are of a sand texture, then that means that water will be going through easily and not being retained. And of course, you want to still avoid the clayish type, because those ones will be keeping water for a long time. You want the loam type, which can keep water but then let it go down into the deeper layers of the soil. If at all it's the clay type, it will keep the water on the surface and it won't be good for your crops. So basically, I hope this is clear. I've spoken about what water conservation is, why it is important, how it can be done, and how you can prepare for it on your farm. I hope you found this episode interesting. In case you haven't subscribed to our channel, I remind you to click on that subscribe button as well as the notification one, such that you are always notified when we release an episode. Once again, I wish you a great Easter. Until next time, when I'll be releasing another episode in 2 weeks' time, may the good Lord bless you.